Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and today we're going to be ranking all of the endings in Twisted Metal that were wholesome. So let's get right into it. So as I said at the beginning, this video is going to be all of the endings that I proclaim to be wholesome within the Twisted Metal category of games. I went through every single ending painstakingly, rewatching all of them to verify my thoughts as to what I would consider as wholesome or just good-hearted in nature. Obviously, there isn't a whole lot to choose from within the entire Twisted Metal catalog when it comes to Calypso and actually being wholesome. Now, I did find 12 that fit pretty nicely in this category, so this is not going to be a top 10 or anything, but I am going to rank these from least wholesome to most wholesome, but every single one of these still fall into that category of just straight up lighthearted, if you will. My criteria for these rankings essentially is that they only show endings where the person making the wish had a very good ending or at least an overall positive message. Now, just getting revenge on Calypso does not count as straight up being wholesome, so you might notice some of them missing from this list that you may have considered them being wholesome in general. And if I do miss an ending that you think deserved to be on this list, let me know in the comment section below. The last thing is that just because an ending ends up not hurting the person making said wish, that does not make it automatically wholesome. One good example is Twisted Metal Head-On's Axel ending. Yes, his wholesome wish was that he wanted world peace, essentially, and he ends up getting pizza, and it's just a kind of a dumb one-off joke. Yes, in my opinion, nothing bad happened to anybody, but it's still kind of just a dumb joke. It's not necessarily straight up wholesome. So I just want to get that out of the way. So, starting out, we have Cousin Eddie from Twisted Metal Head-On. Literally, all he wants is a brand new RV. He's a little angry at Calypso because Calypso doesn't really consider him a contestant because he's supposed to be a mid-boss. It's kind of a funny little joke they play here where Calypso breaks the fourth wall, if you will, and states you're not supposed to even be in this contest, you are a boss, and Cousin Eddie doesn't listen to him. He chokes him a little bit and essentially makes Calypso give him a wish. And yes, he gets his shiny RV, and he seems very, very happy. And that's why I feel like this one's a pretty wholesome ending. He doesn't wish for anything evil, he doesn't do anything bad, Calypso doesn't really die or get hurt or nothing like that, and he gives him exactly what he wants. Next up is General Warhog from Twisted Metal 4. This one might be controversial, and I've heard this one kind of looked at it both ways, and I totally understand if you don't agree with me here. But me personally, when I look at this ending, all I see is a man who really just wants to rule the world's greatest battlefield. He wants to be the commander of the greatest war of all time, and in the end he seems very content even though all he does is become a toy and he's leading a toy army of men. I know this might also be possibly a hint or an Easter egg towards the Sarge's Army Men games. I loved those, by the way, growing up as a kid. But yeah, I always thought this ending was pretty funny more than anything, and it just kind of seems like he seems fine being a toy leading a toy army. So I would consider this one to be quite wholesome. Moving on to Shadow from Twisted Metal Black. Yes, I know, you guys are probably going, holy crap, a TM Black ending is in a wholesome video, but hear me out on this one. So I know that the ending wish for Shadow is to get Kelly back with her alive, and Calypso pretty much ignores her wish altogether and allows her just to straight up get revenge on these bullies. And that's not the reason I'm considering this one wholesome, because I don't think killing anybody is ever wholesome. Violence is not the answer. But the thing I really like about the ending of this one is that Raven comes to terms with Kelly's death after getting revenge on these bullies. She genuinely feels Kelly would have been proud of her for doing this and for getting over the grief of the loss of her best friend. And I think that part is really sweet and wholesome personally. And when you're looking at all the endings of Twisted Metal Black, this one is definitely the most wholesome out of what we got in that game. Next is Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal 1. I have a couple other Twisted Metal 1 endings on this list, and I want to make sure that you guys are aware. I'm not talking about the lost endings. I'm only taking into account the endings that ended up in the final product game. Yes, these endings are a little bit boring because it's just text-based, but if you actually read through them, these are extremely wholesome. I don't know why Calypso was so nice in TM1, but needless to say, that's why they're on this list. In Sweet Tooth's ending, essentially all he wants is to get his best friend Harold back, which ends up being a paper bag. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and in reality it just kind of shows how insane Sweet Tooth is, and it's just kind of a silly wholesome moment where Calypso gives him his best friend Harold back, and he lets him drive off into the sunset without any care or say. And again, it's just kind of dumb, it's silly, but no one got hurt and everyone left happy. Next up is Drag Queen from Twisted Metal 4. Yes, this one is pretty cut and dry. He wants to be a pop star, and his wish is granted. He becomes a pop star, and it looks to be pretty successful. And I know Twisted Metal 4 might be looked at as kind of weird for this list because it wasn't Calypso granting the wish, but that has no criteria on this list at all. I don't care if it's Calypso or Sweet Tooth or whoever granting the wishes, as long as it is a wholesome ending. And in this situation, yeah, I would definitely say Drag Queen got what they asked for, and there was no repercussions. The only thing that was really weird to me is how Drag Queen's actor or voice actor for some reason did not show up for this version of the ending. You just hear him humming some weird notes in replies to Melvin, and somehow Melvin understands what he's saying and gives him his wish. Don't know what that was, if it was an inside joke or what, but either way, wholesome ending, can't deny that. And continuing the TM4 train, we also have Metermaid on this list. And the reason why I'm putting Metermaid here is literally just because of how silly this ending is to me. And the fact that Sweet Tooth, this maniacal psycho killer clown that has all the power in the world right now, agrees to these terms. And I'm assuming it's meant to be kind of like a sexist joke. It's meant to be, oh, she's super hot and maybe she'll sleep with him or something. That's the reason he goes along with it. I don't know if that's really the case, but it kind of seems that way. But either way, she comes in wanting to arrest him or giving him a ticket for whatever reason, and Melvin talks her down to Sweet Tooth just doing some community service. And for some reason, Sweet Tooth agrees to it. So it just ends with him in some type of driver's ed class with all of his little minions around him messing around, and he looks very distraught. And again, very funny, silly ending. But in the end, Metermaid didn't get in trouble. She didn't get killed. Nothing bad happened to her. She got what she wanted, and so I would consider this one a wholesome ending. Next up is Thumper from Twisted Metal 1. Once again, we're looking at the final product version of Thumper because his lost ending was actually a completely different storyline. And in this ending, all he asks for is that his neighborhood that he grew up in is crime-free and it's safe to live in. So that's right there a pretty wholesome ass ending, in my opinion, or at least a wholesome ass wish. And Calypso straight up says, okay, good, wish is granted. It says that Thumper drives out of there not really truly believing that Calypso made promise on his wish. However, he gets home and it seems that everything was true, and that's how it ends. So yeah, nothing really too crazy here that happens, but it is pretty wholesome. And moving on to Axel from Twisted Metal 2. This one might be again controversial on the wholesome scale, but I absolutely love this ending in TM2. It's still my favorite one in the game. And I consider this one wholesome because Calypso gives Axel exactly what he wants with no repercussions. He confronts Calypso asking to see his father because he wants to confront his father about putting him into this machine and turning him into a freak. So Calypso sends him right to his dad. He confronts him, tells him off, rips himself out of the machine. He is now a free man, and he runs away, essentially, into the cornfield, never to really be seen again, at least until the next entry. So I always thought this ending was pretty interesting because it really just had some really heartfelt story to it. It was just a guy defying his horrible father and getting away from it, which is really cool, and Calypso let that happen, so I would consider this one definitely wholesome. And sticking to TM2, we have Grasshopper. Now, once again, I could see someone maybe considering this one not wholesome because of how it ends with an explosion. But hear me out on this one. I think this one's wholesome because Calypso, for the first time, at least in Twisted Metal 2, he does show a very sensitive side to his character. And he gets to see his daughter again, which he thought she was dead for years at this point, and it's what kind of converted him to become this maniacal, evil person. So seeing him kind of break down as a loving father again, even if he is to die from this explosion, and he knows that she's not technically the real Krista, it does leave you with some fuzzy feelings inside when you're watching this. You do feel kind of bad for both characters in the situation. So yeah, Grasshopper is a tearjerker and also a very wholesome ending. Coming down to the wire, the last three here is Spectre from Twisted Metal 1. This one is really funny to me because in the Lost ending, it's a completely different story. It's extremely horrible and evil what Calypso does to Spectre, but in the actual ending we got, it's one of the most wholesome in the entire game series. So Spectre's wish is just to become alive again. That's all he wants. He wants a life He wants to come back to the living because he was killed without any real reason. And the crazy thing about this ending in the actual finished product is that Calypso grants it to him. He brings him back to life, and he gets to leave and go finally meet his daughter, who was born 3 days after his death. That doesn't put a tear down your face. I don't know what will. Very wholesome, beautiful ending. But it is very funny when you put it in contrast next to the Lost Twist Metal 1 ending, where Calypso brings him back to life only to shoot him dead again, just to say F you. I always thought that was insane, but again, Twist Metal 1 Spectre ending deserves this place. And at the final two, we have Mortimer from Twisted Metal Head On. Another Head On ending here on the list. Last one was Cousin Eddie, so it's been a little while. And this one definitely deserves its place. Mortimer, aka Shadow, literally just wants to sleep. He wants to go back to bed. He essentially was already dead, but got woken up by some stupid teenagers, and that's why he joined the contest, so that he could be put back to his eternal rest. And Calypso, instead of fighting it or doing anything weird, he literally just reads him a bedtime story and puts him back to sleep. I thought this is super funny. It's clearly meant to be satirical, and it's awesome. I love this ending so much. And yeah, that's why it's definitely number 2 in the most wholesome endings in Twisted Metal. And at number 1, this one probably is no surprise to a lot of you. I think I've brought this up a few times in my videos and in my live streams, but I stand by it. Spectre in Twisted Metal SmallBrawl has the most wholesome ending in the entire series. I think the main reason for this is because it involves a kid. It doesn't involve an adult or anything like that. And in SmallBrawl, if you guys know the endings of this game, not a lot of them are wholesome. A lot of them actually end up with people dying, and most of them being Calypso getting screwed over. So it's really funny when you see an ending like this in SmallBrawl, and it's just straight up cool, and it makes you feel really good inside, and it feels good about the character and everyone involved. And essentially, he gets a key from Calypso that goes to his deceased dad's car that was in Twisted Metal 2. Which is, I guess, giving canon to Ken from TM2 having a child, and whose child ends up in SmallBrawl. And yeah, we all know how he ended up in TM2, so I guess Twist Metal SmallBrawl, it's canon that Ken was the rightful winner of TM2's storyline, if that makes sense. It's super cool to see that Calypso was nice enough to give him this gift that allows him to get something that brings him closer to his dad, who maybe he didn't really get to know as he grew up. Super sweet to see him get this vehicle and drive off into the sunset, even though clearly he's not old enough to drive, and we're not going to talk about or think about what happens after that. But either way, these were all of my rankings of the most wholesome endings in Twisted Metal history. I know I narrowed it down to 12. I didn't want to cut any of these ones out of the video to make it just a top 10. But if there is any that I did miss or you felt should have been on this list, let me know in the comment section below, and I definitely love to hear you guys' thoughts on these type of rankings. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like, share, support as always. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody, and stay wholesome.